1959, 30 years earlier of what Jack said when he didn't want to do a second take. He said, I was touched by the hand of God. Oh, well, all of us were touched by the hand of God, said Alfred Leslie, smiling. Yeah, Alfred, but Jack never forgot it, I said. Alfred wasn't smiling. However, that night in 1959, he was smiling even less. He sat with his head in his hands that night. Silence filled the room, except for the sounds of Jerry Newman, the engineer, chewing on a pastrami and corned beef sandwich while he waited to see what we were planning to do next. Jack, I said, why don't we do what we did at our first reading at Circle in the Square Theater when that kid with the long hair and the knapsack told us he'd come all the way from Wyoming and wanted us to do the part about George Shearing reading from On the Road. We just played that before he got there, remember? Well, we did it again in the second half of the show when you guys finally returned from your partying and you did a completely different version. We always do a different version each time we do one, Davy, said Jack, matter-of-factly. Well, let's do it again, Jack, I said. Old Alfie had to put up with the crew of all of us like Mutiny on the Bounty for 3 weeks with us cutting up and not doing anything we were told to do, and he just about got ejected from all the commotion that we caused in the neighborhood. We trashed the studio. Let's do it again, man. It'll be even better. I enjoy hearing you over the earphones. It's like going to a drive-in movie. All right. Okay, Davy. Pourquoi pas? Why not? Heavenly muses, fortify my journey with more fine wine in the depth of Davy's deep, dark dharma as we pursue take two. Alfred breathed a deep sigh of relief. Robert rewound the film. Jerry Newman put down his pastrami and corned beef sandwich, and Jack opened up a second bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape. I drained a can of Dr. Brown's black cherry soda, and we did a second take of the narration. I started off playing differently, and Jack did a completely different version. I remembered that neither of us thought about it at the time of what we were doing, either time. All our energies were focusing on doing it at the moment. This was not a process that could be analyzed or merchandised by a fake guru. We had just did this what came naturally. Alfred and Robert both knew that the narrations, both of them, were a work of art on their own, even without the film. And yet each narration fit the film in an uncanny way. Alfred and Robert ended up using some of each of the two narrations. 2 weeks later, I was ready to record the score and the title song Pull My Daisy with lyrics by Jack Kerouac, Neil Cassidy, his road buddy, and Allen Ginsberg. Unfortunately, the complete versions of both Jack's narrations with my original improvised accompaniment, as well as 50 hours of outtakes from Pull My Daisy, were all lost in a disastrous fire just a few years later. Another day, Alfred had a different studio, but all of Jerry Newman's original sound recordings also were lost, misplaced, or disappeared. The night we finished Jack's narration, Jack and I stayed at Jerry Newman's studio until 5 a.m. after Jack and Alfred and Robert had gone home. Afterwards, Jack joined us and we were celebrating the completion of Jack's narration. Jack played the piano and I improvised lyrics and played French horn. Then I played pianos, flutes, horns, and Jack made up incredible songs about our 1958 trip on the subway to Brooklyn College and the near disaster of performing there for a packed house of the students who were furious at him because he answered each of their questions with another question, like a New England crackpot Zen master. Then he launched into a chillingly accurate parody of what it would be like someday when the sacred traditions of Eastern religion became mainstream. Like the beatnik phenomenon, it would somehow turn around to be the opposite of what it was all about, with hustlers and sleaze merchants cutting out the essential soul as they ripped off young people's money. I wish we had a recording of that night. Jack predicted it would become known as the excesses of the 60s and even his own eventual downfall as a result of refusing to endorse behavior attributed to him that he found repugnant. He was like a reporter describing his own future. After all of this was wrapped out spontaneously with humor, musicality, and zest, then Jerry Newman died, and many of his tapes mysteriously disappeared. What's left of the half-hour version of Pull My Daisy with the narration and the final music is an indication of what we did and what we were all about. Most important, we always knew we could create something fresh each day. So when we gave it away and forgot about it, our only hope was that the energy we shared with others would inspire them to be creative. And we knew that if our work or ideas were lost or stolen, we could always create something new. I had 2 weeks after Jack completed the narration to compose all the music for Pull My Daisy. Portions of the score I improvised in one take using earphones, listening to Jack and watching the film, matching Jack's voice and inflections the way I always did. The composed portions of the film were scored for alto saxophone, viola, English horn, bassoon, bass violin, and percussion, and I played piano, French horn, and percussion. I had Sahib Shahab, the great saxophone player who played with Bird and Dizzy and Monk, and so many others, play the alto saxophone. He played also with Oscar Pettiford's band that I was in for 2 years, and I had been a member of Sahib Shahab's own short-lived band, The Composers, in 1956, with Kenny Burrell playing guitar. Sahib was a master musician, and I knew he could play accurately and beautifully during the scene in the film that showed Larry Rivers playing his saxophone with no sound. Sahib did this all in one take. "I never sounded that good," said Larry when he watched the finished film and heard Sahib's brilliant playing. When Sahib and I played together with Oscar Pettiford's band at Birdland in 1957, I introduced him to Jack. Like all musicians, Sahib loved Jack as a person as well as a writer. "He sold people to me," Sahib whispered in my ear when we were recording the music for Pull My Daisy. Jack was sitting blissfully in the control room, eyes closed, feeling the music, as Sahib and I played with bassist Arthur Phipps and drummer Al Harewood. "He's real people. He doesn't try to be hip. He has with no white, black thing going at all. He's just a regular cat, and he can write his ass off." Exactly what Dizzy Gillespie always said to me about Jack. "I wish he'd lived to get to be read about himself and on the road. Kerouac's the only cat who understood what our music is coming from. I remember seeing him up at Minton's when we were getting it all together." And Jerry Newman, too. They were there.
Just David, if you
What?
don't mind just going back a sentence, somebody unmiked themselves. So
Oh,
we have
sure.
some
Okay.
So let's try
Continue.
to keep our mics off till Davey's
Okay,
done
no
reading.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay, and what Dizzy Gillespie said to me about Jack, I'll repeat that. "I wish Bird had lived to get to read about himself and on the road." This was after Jack had died. Dizzy told me this. "Kerouac's the only cat who understood where our music is coming from. I remember seeing him up at Minton's in the 40s when we were getting it all together. And Jerry Newman was there too. They were there before it ever became together, before it went downtown. Jack was always cool. He's not white. He's not black. He's Kerouac." I just hope he looks after himself. I could see he's juicing a lot. That's no good, man. You got to talk to him, Dave. Remind him God only gives you one body. Tell him to love himself. We need cats like him. Sahib played perfectly, and all the other musicians were also able to play everything at sight and complete the score in the 1 3-hour session we had to record all my music. Hey, Dave, get some more time next time, for Christ's sakes, said Midhat Serbaji, who was playing viola. He was my old buddy from the 7th Army Symphony days, and he used to come to Lucian Carr's jam sessions with Jack and me. Midhat would play and sing Lebanese music as well as jazz. He became a member of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, but he always was open to all music. He was from Boston and loved Jack's Lowell accent, which was similar to his own. Hey, Jack, your narration sounded good, man, said Midhat. I could understand what you were saying. Maybe you could teach these New Yorkers some good diction so we know what the hell they're talking about. Let's go up to the Cape this summer and sleep on the dunes in Provincetown. I want to get the hell out of New York and go back home to Massachusetts. I'll be there, Midhat, said Jack. Just don't drink up all the beer before I get there. Hearing them talk reminded me of how much Jack treasured his roots. The musicality of the New England accent was part of Jack's magic as a speaker, narrator, and spontaneous rapper. You could hear the sound of Lowell in everything he did. Anita Ellis sang the title song for the film. She was an old friend of Alfred's and agreed to record it as a favor for him. I'd already recorded the accompaniment during our 3-hour session, so Anita overdubbed the song in 2 takes. C'est fini. It's all done, said Jack. We have something for our grandchildren to look at someday. They'll see a glimpse of who we were. Maybe they'll want to make their own petit flick little film and replace it with the simple things of life. Man, I love that music you wrote when they showed the cockroaches crawling in the sink. That's New York captured on film. 1,000 cockroaches cruising under a leaky faucet over a pile of dirty dishes. I'm sorry they didn't use the part where you broke down the door in the bathroom and emerged in your cowboy suit to shoot Allen Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, and Peter Orlovsky. That's okay, Jack, I said. They can always scrape it off the cutting room floor and use it for the sequel, Son of Pull My Daisy. Or submit it to the film library at the New York School of Bad Acting. That's okay, Jack. We're cool. A short time later, after Anita Ellis had recorded the title song, the film was mixed and we had a screening of Pull My Daisy. Afterwards, we were all invited to a cast party with a lot of other friends to celebrate the film's completion. After a few hours of merriment, Franz Klein, the great painter, stood up and raised his hands for silence. Every one of us in the room that night, even the most incorrigible egomaniacs and hyperactive nutcases, all paid attention. They all paid attention because we knew that Franz Klein was one of the people we all respected and admired. I want to say a few words to all of you. I congratulate all of you for making a film that brings us all together and documents some precious moments of everyday life. It shows us as we really are as artists, hanging on, hanging in, and hanging tough. But I don't want to talk about the film. I want to talk about our lives. I'm older than almost all of you. Most of my life, I barely got by. Recently, the art scene's exploded and I've become a rich man. But my life is not built around fame and money. I was just as good an artist when I painted portraits for $1 in the village. Now those portraits are worth thousands, but they're no better or worse than they were when I drew them to be able to buy myself a meal. They're part of the body of my life's work, a document of my survival. My older landscapes of Pennsylvania are worth as much now. They're worth so much, in fact, that I have to hide them so I don't get put into an even higher tax bracket. For years, nobody would pay a dime for them. They're still the same paintings. They didn't get any better. I treasure them as much as the recent black and white abstracts that made me famous overnight. What I'm doing now made me a rich man, but all that's beyond my control and has nothing to do with my work or my commitment. My dealer is furious. I've shown him my latest work. I'm returning to color. He tells me to ride it out and change when the fashions change. I told him no. We interrupted Franz with a spontaneous series of cheers. Yeah, Franz, all right on. Sock to that greedy sucker, shouted Gregory Corso. I told my art dealer, I paint each picture from my heart. I followed my heart all my life. I can't change that, and none of you should either. Don't confuse fame and money with art. Rejoice in your fame if you get any. Spend your money if you get any. But don't ever forget what our job is. Don't forget, we're in this for life. Now, Jack, as for your film about the Beat Generation, whatever that is, without you, none of this would have happened. We all know that there's no Beat Generation or beatniks. The poseurs, merchandisers, and mediocrities that adopt a label to sell what a worthless group of merchandisers have a right to live on is their right. But let's not confuse fashion with fact. The fact is that On the Road is a great book that spoke to people where they live, in their hearts. Jack, I remember you and Amram performing at the Five Spot and Painters Lost before On the Road came out. I remember you, Alfred Leslie, and Robert Frank and Larry Rivers some years ago. I knew almost all of you in this room. Let's all thank Jack. He now has the cross to bear. He's recognized more for a false image creating by a merchandising myth than he is for his true gifts as an artist. I'm in the same position. I'm no spokesman for abstract expressionism or any other ism. I'm Franz from a small town in Pennsylvania. Anything people want to know about me, they can see in my paintings or read in a library. So, Jack, thank you for making it possible for all of us to be together and make a little film about our lives. I like it. It's simple, fun, and unpretentious. And it's in black and white. Now, an order for my wonderful philosophy and sociologic insights to be imprinted forever in your memories. I need a goddamn drink so I can toast you all. Robert poured Franz a tumbler full of Scotch whiskey. Here's to pull my daisies, said Franz, raising his glass. Here's to Jack Kerouac. Here's to all of you tonight. And here's to Jackson Pollock and Charlie Parker, Louis Armstrong, King Oliver, Bunk Johnson, Bessie Smith, Bela Bartok, and all those now on the other side in that spirit world. You're in our hearts. You're part of us. Remember us poor bastards down here and know that we remember you. We're all still sinners, so put in a good word for us so we can join you upstairs when our time comes. Here's to life. Franz gulped down his drink, and then he came over, put his arm around Jack's shoulder and said, Jack, let's show these big city sophisticates how to party. As bedlam broke loose with drinking, smoking, dancing, poetry being read, insults and jokes being shouted, bongos, congas, pots and pans being banged, and the whole loft shaking with all of us carousing till dawn, I felt that we had reached the end of an era. Our network of friends, bound together by the desperation of our situation, bonds of mutual compassion and respect that were fragile at best, were now being demolished by changing times. The 1950s were over. The company store had bought up our ideas and repackaged them into an image so specious that we realized we were no longer welcome unless we wanted to join the charade. I think that Robert Frank and Alfred Leslie knew better than Jack and I did why Pull My Daisy should be made. As Robert said, with Pull My Daisy, we captured a moment in time. And next week, we're going to read about the 1960s and some wonderful work that we did. But now we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming an amazing guest. It was right in Greenwich Village that I had a chance to meet her so many years ago. And she's remained, as the Bob Dylan song's title, forever young, always with spirit, and continues to be one of the premier actresses of our culture. And she's here tonight, and what a joy to be with her again. We also have the wonderful Jim Canary, who is the conservator of the original 1951 three-week scroll that Jack Kerouac wrote out on an enormous series of scroll papers. And he's the person who takes care of that as it travels around the world. And we have Pamela Dickerson, our terrific young producer, and Anthony Demerbier, who's the genius engineer as well as being a musician and an artist, and Norbert Wisdom, a terrific painter. And we're going to now invite.
We're actually going to see the intermission piece on Miss Brenda Vaccaro.
Thank you, Pamela.
Yes, thank you, Anthony.
We who make films, members of the Academy, are terribly proud of the world's serious and dedicated filmmakers and their product. And each year, when the Academy announces the nominations for awards, film critics and fans alike find as much to disagree about as to agree with, which, as of course, as it should be. That's why we make melodramas, musicals, historical pageants, comedies, westerns, and documentaries. There is no disagreement, however, that each year films are intensified and refined and more widely accepted as a really true art. And from an abundance of excellence, we have nominated the Academy these films as the 5 best pictures of the year. Midnight Cowboy, produced by Jerome Hellman. Anne of the Thousand Days, produced by Hal B. Wallace. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, produced by John Foreman. Z, produced by Jacques Perrin and Hamad Rashidi. Hello, Dolly, produced by Ernest Lehman. The winner is Midnight Cowboy.
Look at this here, see?
There's an E in money. I mean, if that's your word.
M-O-N-Y. That's just exactly how you spell it up there in that big building up there. M-O-N-Y, money.
Huh?
Why? What in the hell starts with why?
Well, it can end in Y. Like, say, pay, lay, hey, pay, lay.
Okay, cut it out now. That's enough. You're cheating, teasing me so I can't think.
Gay ends in Y. Hmm? You like that?
Cut that out.
Gay Faye. Is that your problem, baby?
I'm gonna show you my dumb problem.
Come in. I hate you. You're too damn beautiful. But then why not with a father like Mike Wayne?
I'm supposed to see Miss Riggs at 3 and I'm...
Ms. Riggs, honey. January. Who the hell do you think I am? Hello. I forgot. How long has it been since you've seen me?
8, 9 years.
Well, I've had a nose job. My teeth have been capped. My tits were lifted. My ass was flattened, and my knees were straightened. My navel, I'm proud to say, was untouched. It's perfect.
Oh, I always thought you were wonderful. You had such a great personality, Linda.
And wouldn't you know it? I went through all that trouble and expense just to get beautiful, and now ugly is in. I want my old nose back.
Hey, didn't I read in the alumni magazine that you were an actress once?
Just once. My father backed a play, and I got the lead. I went out there a star, and I came back an understudy. Then I got a job on this magazine. I screwed every guy in this organization, literally and figuratively, and I gave the shaft to every woman who stood in my way. Now, at 28, I am the youngest editor Gloss magazine has ever had. Or any woman's magazine, I think. Ask me if I'm happy.
Are you happy?
Deliriously. Today, that is. Yesterday, I was miserable. And I might be miserable again tomorrow. Who knows? It's crazy. Yeah. Put him on hold. This has turned into one of my busiest days, and we've got so much to talk over. January, I'm really glad to see you. Why don't we have dinner tomorrow night?
Oh, I have a date with David Milford.
David Milford? He's the biggest stud in town. How did you manage it so soon?
Well, he's my dad's wife's cousin.
Of course. Otherwise, you'd be on the waiting list. I said put him on hold. You said on the phone yesterday you'd like to model.
Or act.
Right. Well, I called this agency, and they're looking for a fresh face for a commercial. I've got the name of the agency, who to see, the address, all that jazz. Now, you know what I want from you?
What?
I'd love to get a story on Deidre and your father. Now, I have tried and tried, but she always turns us down. It's all here. Don't forget to tell him I sent you.
The actress we're about to meet has just completed a demanding role in Jacqueline Suzanne's Once Is Not Enough. She's accompanied by an actor who proved that once is not enough by playing an ape several times. Here are the glowing Brenda Vaccaro and the gifted Roddy McDowell.
Hello.
Hello.
We have 2 awards to present.
Yes, the first is for the Best Achievement in Animated Short Films. And the nominees are...
That's me. Closed Mondays, Will Vinton and Bob Gardner, producers.
The Family That Dwelt Apart, Yvonne Mellette and Robert Verrel, producers.
Hunger, Peter Foles and Renee Jodin, producers. Forgive me. Saying the names wrong.
Voyage to Next, Faith and John Hubley, producers.
Winnie and the Pooh and Tigger 2. Here it is. Wolfgang Reitherman, producer.
And the winner is...
Oh, if I have to say Wolfgang's name again, I'm going to be in trouble. The winner is Closed Mondays, Will Vinton and Bob Gardner.
Down in Muhlenberg, my brother-in-law fixed me up in no time. He's county clerk.
This manual's written at 8th grade level.
Well, why don't you make up word lists like we've been doing, and I'll memorize them?
Words like intersection, violation, obstruction, it's too difficult. It's not only that. They make these tests far trickier than they have to be. Even I had to take mine twice.
Even you, huh?
You in.
I'm just an old chunk of coal, but I'm gonna be a diamond someday. I'm gonna grow and glow till blue, you're perfect. I'm gonna put a smile on everybody's face. Oh, but I'm gonna kneel and pray every day, lest I should become vain along. You read all these books?
Yes, more or less. I love this room. I love these books. 1,000 different worlds, all ready and waiting. Can you imagine? 1,000 different lives. Now they can be yours too. Other places, other times, new thoughts. Isn't that wonderful? Well, here's your first novel by Ernest Hemingway. I chose it for you.
The Old Man and the Sea.
Sit down. Written words aren't just a code that you have to decipher, Jess. They speak. They have voices. They paint colors even. Just like that painting we saw today by Frederick Remington. I hope you like it. I hope you read it. You can, Jess. It's beautifully written, and its language is very simple. The man in the story reminds me of you.
He was an old man who... He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream. And he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. Poor fella.
Oh, I love him. He was so much fun. He was so easy. He was great to work with. He was a great improviser. You know, he flowed and glowed through everything. He is the nicest man to work with. He just goes with it. Do you know what I mean? Like Al Pacino, but in a different way. Because anything you throw at Al, he goes with it. Anything you throw at Ed, he makes funny and he goes with it. So it's just that comedic genius. You know, he's very funny. And I just think he's wonderful in this movie. I saw that Amanda Seyfried scene, you know, in the, what do you call it, the trailer? It's adorable. It was an adorable scene. It's New York, baby!
Where they flirt. Well, speaking about New York, you're from Brooklyn, Dina's from Astoria, and it's a very New York heavy cast. How is it like just working with them?
Like being home.
Yeah, because
I grew up here. I was born in Brooklyn. I mean, this is not news for me.
But like
you
the
know.
entire story revolves around, you know, Eddie, who is from Queens.
That's right.
So how is that like, you know, featuring inside the area?
You know, it was even better than Bronx Tale. I said to the musical, The Bronx Tale, I said, why did I ever leave Brooklyn? I was sorry I left Brooklyn. You know, because I mean, it's just so great. The city's so great. The people are great. Herb Gardner once wrote a line in 1,000 Clowns. A guy goes over and opens the window, and it's just buildings. And he says, you know why New York is great? Because you can lean out the window and go, I'm sorry. And 400 windows open, and they all lean out and say, it's all right, just don't do it again.
Davey, we have a request that you put your microphone closer to where you're speaking. A few people aren't hearing quite well from the Zoom call. Is it possible to lift the mic up and bring it closer to you, please?
Oh, sure.
Without you having to lean over so much?
Great.
As long as you're comfortable.
Boy, that
Okay,
was
thank
so
you.
great to see that film. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Brenda, for allowing us to do that. What an inspiration that was to everybody who wants to hang in there and be an artist their whole life. That was just terrific. And now I guess I could make a formal introduction. It's not necessary because it was already done by all of those people. But she's just such a wonderful person and so inspiring. to anybody and everybody, whether or not they work in the theater or the films or do anything, just to find what you dare to think you're put here to do and to continue doing it. And as Dizzy Gillespie told me on his 70th birthday, put something back into the pot. That's what he told me. So this is someone who gives as much as he receives and makes us all feel good. And we're just so happy she has the time with her incredibly busy schedule to come on her, to honor Jack Kerouac and honor all the artists of a different era and honor all of you young artists who are coming up, who are being told by your career counselors, you suck, give it up. Well, there's a second point of view known as a lifetime commitment, just as Franz Klein said in that years ago to us. And this is someone who's got that. And she's so much fun. I'm going to say hi, Brenda, and thank you for coming.
Hi. Thank you. Well done.
Do we have camera on Brenda?
Yeah, that was to both of you.
Brenda, looks that way.
Can I ask you a favor? Could you let the people know, since neither of us are engulfed in
Speak up, David. I can't hear you.
I was wondering if you could do us a favor. And
that's much better. Yes.
Okay, great. If you could do us a favor and let everyone know what you're doing, that wonderful theater production that you helped to celebrate that theater out in the Hamptons, because that's so one, and that, folks, is right now, not 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's today.
Yeah, thank you. That's very kind, because I'm sure Joy Behar would appreciate what you're doing. It's really Joy Behar deciding, I want to be a playwright. And I thought that was just great that she told me that. And actually, I read one play that she wrote, which was 2 acts. And she invited an audience into a small rehearsal room. And they were all friends and producers and agents and managers, blah, 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 blah. And she got a great cast together. And we had a wonderful time reading her play. I thought it's very good. Then she wrote 4 one-act plays. And she said, this is a benefit for the Guild Theater in East Hampton. And I wanted you to be in 2 of them. And I said, absolutely. It was my first Zoom experience. And I did my best. I just kept remembering what Tennessee Williams said, which was the eyes, are the windows to the soul. Well, the last thing you see, folks, are the eyes. You just see a little thing that says camera. That's it. So it was quite an experience. I'm glad I did it. It was interesting. I had fun. But she's doing these plays as a benefit. And they're on, October 25th on YouTube. That's it. So I hope people will watch, because I think they're very good, aren't they? Yeah. I had a good time. And I like Joy. I think she's very talented. She writes funny characters. She's funny. She's very funny. She's good.
And she's also such a great radio show. She had a wonderful radio show, but I remember
I did that show when she did it. Yeah, that's how I met Joy. Years ago, right?
Yeah, she's terrific. And I remember years ago when I was at the Art Foods Delicatessen, 2 of the cast members of Midnight Cowboy, 2 of those cast members, John Voight, who'd been in a play with your friend John Daly back in 1967.
I missed that.
There. John, that was that summer, that fall, Frank Gilroy's play. And I remember she was so wonderful in that. And then he used to come to the Art Foods Delicatessen, and also Dustin Hoffman, who had been a waiter at the Village Gate, used to come there. And they used to talk when they were making that movie, 1969, said, man, you got to see this fantastic actress that's in it. This is her first film. And she's something else. And that was Brenda Vaccaro. And they told me about that. So when I finally saw the film later on, years later, and then met you after that, I was already appreciative of everything that you did. And so were a lot of other people. And of course, I think musicians really appreciate actors more than just about anybody, and appreciate the relationship between the actor and the playwright and the audience and the directors and the films and all that. Because as you know, in music, you come in there, you unpack your instrument, and you're in some funky place, and you're supposed to make it beautiful. And that's what actors do every second of their life, and to create that magic. And being in a bad movie myself with a bunch of non-actors, that made all of us appreciate the magic of the theater and acting more than, and you kind of personify that to a lot of people.
Okay. I'll extract all that. That's good and remember it. Put it in my tea in the morning. Stir it up. That's very nice. Thank you, David. I think that's important. Yes, we do strive to please. That's for sure. Yep.
And
What
also,
else?
you could take, well, they always, when you were saying about the eyes of the mirror of the soul, they used to say in the garment district, you can't make a mink out of a skunk. But that's basically,
You can't what?
you can't make a mink out of a skunk. But that's
I've seen
basically,
people wear skunk. Not bad.
but that's basically our
Raccoon
gig.
too. They've been ruthless about fur. Let's face it.
But
I've even seen hamsters. One time a guy made a coat out of hamsters. He was French, and I went to the pret-a-porter, and I put on his coat. I said, this is gorgeous. He dyed it a beautiful blue. And he said, oh, they're hamsters. I said, excuse me? They're what? He said, they're baby hamsters. I said, get this thing off of me. They were my pets. I watched those little babies go around in those things for days. I mean, what do you mean they're hamsters? I've seen ruthless activity with fur. Anyway, moving right along.
Greenwich Village.
Okay.
That's what they
What
call
about Greenwich Village? What's that?
Davey said you and he have Greenwich Village stories.
Oh. Me? Oh, David. David has Greenwich Village stories. David, tell your stories.
No, but that's where I met you with Jerry Mulligan and his wonderful.
Was it in Greenwich Village?
It was right in my.
Oh, forgive me.
My place. Well, I remember. I think it was probably more memorable for me than it was for you. I'm not being modest, just realistic. And you were so terrific. And you and Sandy Dennis and Jerry came up to my place, and we sat around hanging out all night long. And I remember going to.
Was Richie Cole there? Richie wasn't there?
No, Richie came with us in the summer of 1977 or 8. I'm not positive, at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and he came and played.
How do you remember all this?
I couldn't
I'm
forget.
really impressed. You're amazing. You remember all this. I remember nothing. Vague little things. Things. But I do remember Jerry, and I do remember Sandy. And I do remember. But I thought I met you at the Telluride Jazz Festival. Did I not? With Richie, or I just saw you again there?
Yeah.
Do you love this? We're boring all these people with. Was it that? No. It sounds like.
And for those of you that don't know Richie.
Oh, it was spring. No, it was fall. You know that song. I mean, it sounds kind of conflicted. Anyway, whenever it was, I met you.
Yeah, and I remember Richie also pulled my daisy very often. And even the last time we played together in Denver, he played that. He was a great musician that just left us May 2nd. I looked it up on the internet because I wanted to be positive. And
yes.
He was a great friend of Brenda's and all musicians. And so many musicians appreciate you, and artists and actors outside of as well as the most important people in the theater and the films. And if you can be respected by your colleagues, wow. And
but
Jack
wasn't he
Cohen
wonderful?
was that
Because
way
he
too.
sort of took jazz and he made it fun and he made it goofy. And he made, where if it was you were listening to Miles Davis and you didn't keep yourself totally looking at him and never having a conversation and never saying, could you pass the salt? He'd leave the stage. Whereas Richie just did things like playing the Lucille Ball and Desilu, theme song to their show. And I mean, he did goofy things and he was willing to step outside of the very serious attitude that everybody had about jazz. Do you remember that? Do you remember him?
Couldn't forget. I remember when he had Sadismo.
What?
This person in a costume that he was hitting with a stick. And I said, Richie,
he did that? I never saw that.
I said, Richie, man, I know you love the theater, but I think maybe you better cool that one out. That was too heavy. So he finally stopped doing it. But he was trying to make a comment on society and the entertainment industry. But he was so much fun, and
He was amazing.
And I know he played. You heard
He was
him with Eddie
amazing. He told me
Jefferson.
that he was a kid. He threw away his youth because he was upstairs all the time in the bedroom practicing his alto sax. I really believed it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
he
he
was
was just, that was the truth. Who was the name of the famous alto saxophone player? Phil?
Phil Woods.
You know what Phil Wood said to me? Because he took me to meet him once. Of course, this was another world for me. And it was exciting because I was meeting all these famous people who I didn't know anything about, honestly. And he said, Phil Wood said to me, you know, when I die, Mr. Richie Cole is going to be the number one man. And I thought that was a great compliment. I knew it was. And Richie was so overcome with that. But Richie was that great. He was great, wasn't he? You know best.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I traveled around with him all the time he was like my Pied Piper in a van without a bathroom. I went everywhere with Richie and Eddie Jefferson. I just was so mesmerized by his excellence. And I knew nothing about the alto because I knew Jerry Mulligan, he played a different kind of sax, right? So I wasn't really educated until I was with these guys. It was a privilege to be with them, that's for sure.
That's the way I
and
feel
you too, Cookie.
Oh, well, thank you.
You were all part of a whole prayer group, and that was music, and that was jazz, and it was serious music, and it had to be taken seriously because there was a lot of crap going on in those days.
Well,
music that meant nothing. What?
There was during Jack Kerouac's time, and he wrote about Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and Monk, whom he heard in the 1940s when everybody said they're wrong. Now that Charlie Parker's 100th birthday and Monk's honoring, they're comparing them to Bach. And the reason is because they all of them had purity of intent and an exquisite choice of notes. And just like Stanislavski's greatest hits, when actors tried to explain to me that magic, which you can't, you just got to be it.
Yeah, like Laurence Olivier did that. That was Laurence Olivier. What you just said brought him to mind. What excellence. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, they were on the case. And all you can do is when you can see that you can respect other people who love their work and do a great job and take everything seriously, that's a heck of a thing. And
yeah, you know, when I was young, I saw Kim Stanley on television doing Girls in Summer Dresses. I'll never forget it. How could I remember that? But I do. And I went to my mother and I said, you know that actress, that woman there? My mother said, yes. I said, I want to do what she does. I want to be her. And I finally, one day I met Kim Stanley. And I kind of worshiped her. She was incredible. She had the guts. She had the guts of truth. So no matter what she had to give out, she gave out without a moment's notice. I mean, she didn't even have to think about it. The truth was there. Boom. She shot it out of a gun. It was amazing. She was amazing. It was a heavy weight to carry that kind of talent. She got tired and started drinking like Lorette Taylor. They all start drinking. Here's to happiness. Anyway, that's my story for tonight.
Well, I remember one thing to lead into the joy of hearing you reading some of Jack. I know people would assume that the only person that could read Jack Kerouac correctly was someone who was just getting out of a rehab center for the 38th time and about to die. And that's fine. You know, everyone has their own opinion. However, Jack called
Why?
me.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Because what?
I'm leading up to a point of explaining how magnificent it is that right now we have a chance to hear you read something of Jack's, because he called me up and said, man.
From heaven, did he call you?
He called me from California.
When he was okay.
In the 60s. And he said, you know, man, he said, you won't believe I had the radio on. A guy was driving me. And he said, I heard part of The Lonesome Traveler read by Charles Lawton.
That's big time.
Who's incredible, as you younger viewers might not remember. Unbelievable.
Quasimodo.
English monster, great classical killer actor that could do anything and everything, like you know, just what it was.
Oh, he was far beyond me.
There he was. Jack called up. He was so thrilled to hear his work.
I can understand that. I think Robert Mitchum told me, he said he directed me in the film, the one where he had bad and good. What was that? White Hunter, whatever. No, that's not it. But anyway, he said he worshiped him as a director. He directed that film, and he so wanted to work with him again, but he never got the chance. He never directed another film. But Mitchum said he was fantastic. He was brilliant to work with as a director.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's that way in literature and music and life. And when Jack read his own stuff too, it was just so nice because, as you described in that wonderful clip, what it was like working with Johnny Cash.
Oh,
Jack was that way
he was
too.
so shy. He didn't know anything. He kept telling me before every take, I'm not an actor. I said, quit saying that because you have to be one now. Hey, Big J, this is your close-up, dude. Don't mess it up. And he'd go, all right, I'm glad you tell me. I'm glad you remind me. I said, remind you? I can't stand here and remind you of this. You have to look at that camera. I will. I know. She's my teacher. Like, he couldn't get over it. He couldn't get over it that he was in a movie. He kept smiling through it. And I said, stop smiling all the time. He said, I'm embarrassed. I said, you don't have to be. You're doing a good job, honey. You're good. And of course, June was sitting there cross-legged, watching every scene. She had an eye on him, didn't she? Oh, that film was Night of the Hunter. That's the one that Charles Lawton directed.
Yeah, that was
just came to me. It was slow walking, but it finally got to me. Night of the Hunter.
By the way, Murray Weinstock texted us in saying Night of the Hunter. So you got it right before I could give you Murray's comment.
Good. Thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you, Murray. I don't know why I didn't remember, but boy, that was a good film, wasn't it? God, and Mitchum was so great in it. He was scary. He knew how to be scary, and he was the most gentle of gentlemen. But
okay, can I segue? May I segue from that scary comment to get a little bit into Al Pacino, because Davey has a theater story about Al Pacino, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about working with him. Remember, Davey?
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Again, how could I forget? Estelle Parsons had invited me to do the music for a production at the Actors Studio of Oedipus. And they had all these young actors who just had small parts, were working as waiters and waitresses who were like incredible, and they couldn't have even gotten in there. And I had met Al when they had something called the Living Theater. And I knew all the actors, Warren Finnerty and all these people that never got that recognized, died too young, but were terrific. So when I was seeing him, I was bringing back his own days when he was still scuffling. So I think he felt sort of comfortable. Anyway, he was just great to hang out with. And Estelle came up and she said, David, you've got to talk to these young actors. I said, what do you mean? I don't know anything about acting. He said, no. He said, they're all scared of him.
Scared of him?
I told him he's only acting because he was playing the part of Oedipus. So
yeah.
He was
scared of Al Pacino.
And he was so much fun. And I remember he said, I come here. He said, this is the happiest time in my life, the 4 hours when I spend just working on the stage. And he loved it. And he was committed and still loved it. I remember you said in a conversation how with him, you say it, I can't speak for you, how whatever you did, he would go with it. Like or an improviser.
Oh, yeah. I think in the one thing that maybe everybody would like to know, because it's an extraordinary moment in my life, in the last scene that we had together, we had to film it. We went to Flint, Michigan to film it. And it was the scene that the brother and sister had, Dr. Kevorkian and his sister. And Al thought that the scene was very light and that it just didn't have what it needed in it. And he said, it's very thin. He called it. He said, it's very thin. And do you agree? I said, yeah. And in truth, I had really been provocative enough to encourage the writer and Barry Levinson, the director, to put the scene in, because between sister and brother, there was a terrible argument. They didn't talk for 6 months and then he died, and I said, this is not in the script. It should be there. They had a terrible argument over a check. that the daughter had paid off of his a bill. And that's how the cops were following. That was the paper trail. So anyway, Al said, okay, let's do it. So 8 o'clock in the morning, we were there, and he turns to me and said, we're off the book, okay? We're off the script. And I went, what? He said, we're off the script. Is that okay? You fine with that? I went, yeah, okay. Yeah. I thought, this doesn't scare me. Of course it did. I thought, where are we going? Where's the Persian rug here? Are we both sitting on it? Is it going to fly? I mean, what's happening here? All of a sudden he said, let's go. I heard action. That was it. And I sat down, and whatever happened just happened. We improvised that entire scene, and Barry Levinson let that thing go. And I just remember my Aunt Marge's voice in my head, what about me? Who's going to take care of me? I just was flying with him on a Persian rug. Woo, woo. We went away. I don't know where we went, but, I finally got up and walked out of the scene. And the door I walked out of, an alarm went off. So they had to reshoot. Just the ending, folks. But anyway, it was like magnificent because it was organic. It really happened. And he couldn't believe it. He said, this is cinema history. I said, oh, calm down. I mean, wait a minute, Al. He said, no, really. We made this up. And I said, yeah, I know. And it was great fun. It was artistic purity, that thing you talk about, honesty. And it was quite beautiful, actually. I'll never forget it. But that was I took a trip with Al. I'll never forget it. He took me to just the right town. You know what I mean? You've had that in music. You're playing with somebody and all of a sudden you start flying.
Oh, yeah.
Just start flying. And it is the greatest place you can be in any kind of art. You could be painting and all of a sudden, you're gone. I love that song. I love that. By the way, somebody gave me a poem today. I nearly died. It was a poem of Jackson. He said, you're going to read some of his poem, huh? Yeah. Well, I read this to my fellow when I married him. And he said, it's Jack's poem. And I said, really? Let me see it. And I fell in love with the poem. It's not that long, but I love mad people. Mad is, you know that poem?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, mad about this, I love that poem. It made, yeah. Where is it? Oh, yeah. It's from On the Roof.
It's the beginning of
the only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time. That's me. The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles, exploding like spiders across the stars. And in the middle, you see the blue center light pop. And everybody goes, oh, I just died. I died when I heard today. He said, I read this to my husband, at their wedding. I went, oh my God, can you mail that to me? Isn't that great, David?
That's beautiful. And the way you read it. And folks,
well, it meant something.
That was unexpected, which shows that spontaneity is the key to everything.
Everything.
And if you work
you just hope it's there with whoever it is you're talking to. But we have that, don't we? Hey, your birthday's not far from mine, November. What's yours? 17th?
Well, I'm a day before, but I'm a little older.
I'm November 18th. See that?
I'm November 17th. And folks, we're both Scorpios with esophagus rising. So if
what does that mean? Esophagus in here?
I don't think it means
is that my throat? Oh God!
They always talk about a rising sign, so I said, "Well, mine's going to be esophagus rising, and then no one can mess with me." But I always think astrology has to be right because they think the Earth is flat, and that the sun goes around the Earth. We don't go around the sun. I said, "Man, otherwise we'd fall off." So I like astrology. And
happy birthday when it comes, baby.
Oh, and you too, darling. And many,
I know. It's just like I remember when I turned a certain age. Oh, I hate to say it. But anyway, I sat up in bed the next morning. I went, but I feel 15. Where the hell did it go? Wait a minute. There was just this realization of like, they're gone. All those years are gone. And I'm this age? What the hell happened? Oh no, that's not me. This didn't happen, did it? I'm just waking up and it's a dream, right? No, man, they're gone. You lived them. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. I'll get up and live today. But at first I was so shocked. I couldn't believe my age. I kind of was happy my mother wasn't here. I think she would have gone, look, you see, I always told you when you get there, getting old is not for sissies, girl.
Well, the nice thing, I'm going to be 90 this November. And one of the
I can't stand it.
So one of
You
the
look great for 90, honey. I
Well,
don't know what 90 looks like, but you sure look good.
Well, I'm inhaling and exhaling, which is primary, and I tell people you're only as old as you make other people feel.
That's true.
When you get
Somebody
older,
just posted, excuse me, somebody just posted a comment that said, you look ragingly young. It went so fast I didn't see who said it, but ragingly young.
Ragingly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't know what that word, how that applies to age, but thank you.
Who said that? You can
I'll
text
take
us
it.
who said that because I didn't
I'm
see
going to
it.
take it like what are those wonderful cupcakes? Anna, what are those cupcakes? Huh? Sprinkle cupcake.
Oh,
I'm taking that like a sprinkled cupcake. I'm
I
going to
said,
take it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
it's Daniel, Brenda. I sent that. And by the way, I watched Cookie last night.
Cookie.
I love
Oh my God. Oh my God, Cookie.
Yeah, but
Oh, Peter Falk.
I said you both look ragingly young and beautiful, both of you.
Oh,
I can't believe David's older than 50. Incredible.
I know it. And not only that, so articulate.
Yes.
Clearly.
By the way,
His brain is in place.
from Portland. I interviewed you a while ago in KBOO in Portland. You might remember that.
Oh, wow. I don't.
Oh, David.
But say it again. Oh,
yeah,
David,
sure.
you did. Forgive me.
My God, man, you're looking good.
And
Oh,
before,
you do remember it?
Yeah, but I never thought I'd make it till 30.
yeah.
Oh, you did not, David. Come on. Really?
So now I wasn't
What
exactly.
kind of drugs were you on?
Well, at that time, I was not what you call a militant health kick type person. But then after all my friends died, I said, maybe this stuff ain't good for you. So when my first child was born, my first of my 3 children, I said, man, I got to be here when they grow up. So that was my own personal 12-step program. And now I just tell young people when they offer me all this stuff, I appreciate your hospitality, but with my 5 remaining brain cells need to function. So I got to cool it and prove you could be just as crashing a bore, stone cold sober as stoned out of your head. Thank you very much.
But honey, that's very gracious the way you say no.
Well, you have to do that because you can't put people down. And I said, I can't be like Mr. Rogers. I did everything that was wrong. And then I figured, well, maybe while I'm still here, at least for my kids, I should be with them and not in the cemetery. But
you know what I always say, as getting older, there are 2 things you really have to deal with that. That's loss and changes. And you have to handle both with grace. Because there's a loss of an animal, there's a loss of a grandmother, there's a loss of the friends, and changes in your body, changes, things happen. You go, what? What did you say? Did you say fibrillation? What is that? Loop recorder? What is that? You have to just be gracious and accept it and deal with it and let it go and carry on. But that's what I've discovered, let's say I don't know what I'm going to discover this birthday, but I'm listening.
Brenda, what Sonny Rollins told me, he turned 90 September. He said, Dave, remember to respect your elders because he's 3 months older than me. He said, I can't play the saxophone anymore and I can barely get around. He said, I've never been happier in my life.
See?
I said, wow, what do you mean? He said, all I think about is the golden rule. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, every major religion, that's all they have. He said, just remember, the body turns to dust, but the spirit lasts forever.
Oh, that's good.
Wow, is that good to hear? So for all the people watching Brenda and everybody else and thinking about Jack Kerouac and all the people who gave and give us so much, hang in there. Don't get bummed out and keep that spirit alive.
Yeah. Lots of love, lots of patience, lots of spirit.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, honey. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, we would like
Sing
to
out, Louise.
We'd like to go to some questions, if that's okay for you. So we just put it out there. If anyone has some questions, I see I'm going to say a wacky musician friend of mine, and I know he's got a question. Robert Miles, are you there? Do you know how to unmic yourself? He's disappeared.
My video. Hello? Am I
Hello.
on? Hello, David.
Yeah.
You remember you one of the greatest influences in my life. We used to jam. I don't know if you remember. We used to jam on Bleecker Street and McDougal Street. I was Bob Miles then.
Oh my gosh.
Smokey. You would play the flute. I'm playing the guitar. One of the best jams of my entire life was right in front of the other end or the bitter end, whatever it was called. And we were just knocking it out of the ballpark.
That wasn't the night that Steve Goodman came out and joined us, was it? And
I don't know.
One time, and they had guys out there playing, and we took up their guitars and started playing, and the owner came out and said, "Man, I'm paying you guys inside," and there was 100 people in the sidewalk, and he said, "Worst of all, the guys with the empty guitars aren't making any money." So Steve and I put $1 in and cooled it so we wouldn't wreck it.
I think that was it. That was the night. We got crowds going.
Wow, I remember that. I always tell people that story. Well, it's good to see you again. It's been a few weeks, or maybe 30, 40 years, but as they say in the famous Jewish joke, who counts?
Who counts? I'd always hoped we could get together and jam again. You're just great, man.
Where are you now?
LA.
All right. Well, my daughter lives out there, so when I come out to see her, I hope we can get together.
Oh, I hope so. I'll be coming to New York, though, very soon. My mom is not doing well. She's out in New York.
Oh, call me up. I'm still on the phone. I'm in the Beacon phone book, and I'm online. You can see my email number and all that stuff. I asked Dizzy, I said, "Dizzy, I can't believe you're handing out your card to everybody." He said, "Man," he said, "I came here with Cab Calloway." He said, "Segovia was the baddest guitar player in the world." I looked him up, and there he was in the phone book. So I figured if Segovia's in the phone book, that's cool, too. It was so nice that instead of having 4 bodyguards or being a reclusive person, he kind of killed them with niceness. And anybody that was really going to be obnoxious, after being with him for 30 seconds, cleaned their behavior for the moment. It was
Wow. What? Go ahead.
Civilization 101.
Cool. While I'm on, I just want to say another big inspiration from you was that book you wrote about your autobiography. Now, that was a long time ago. So you've done a lot, but that was great. I read every word.
Did you get to see Brenda when you were in New York too?
No, unfortunately, but I'm loving her now. She's, always been great on screen.
And Kerouac was that way too. He just hung out with anybody and everybody, and that's why his books are so beautiful, because he was connected, as Brenda said about the eyes being the mirror of the soul. Dostoevsky said that long time ago, and Jack used to always quote Dostoevsky too. And the fact he would hang out with anybody and everybody, he could see the human spirit that we all have, and he checked people and tried to make a soul-to-soul connection with everybody.
Well, he did with me too, because when I left New York, before I came back, around that time, I hitchhiked to California with just on the road, a blanket and a guitar and a notebook.
That's all you need, I guess.
That's all you need. And then my friend, Jean Spinoza, her dad's the one who found the Joan Anderson letter. It was, no, she found it actually when, the story, right?
Yeah, it was in her attic, and they thought Allen Ginsberg had destroyed it, or Gregory Corso had stolen it, or got thrown overboard. And that poor, wonderful German guy for years was criticized for letting it fall overboard.
Right.
And then he finally said, "No." He said, "That wasn't me." Because it showed up. And Carolyn Cassidy's daughter, I think she's going to be in the show later on when the Cassidy's kids, they were so happy that it finally got discovered too. And that's finally going to be published so everybody can read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about this letter. I don't think everyone knows what it is.
Hassan.
Yes, hi.
You tell them about the letter, because
I couldn't do that. Okay.
Well, how about James Canary can tell us about the letter?
He would be better than I would. Yeah, actually, yes.
James, you up for it? You need to unmic yourself. It's not an exact science here.
Well, while he's
You're still mic'd, James. So you go to the bottom of your screen and you see by your name, it's a red thing. Just touch it. Yeah. Hello.
Does that work?
Yes, perfect. Hello.
Great.
Welcome.
Well, the letter, yeah, it's a huge influence on Jack's writing, and I think, when is it supposed to be published? I can't remember. It's coming up really soon, I believe. It went for auction, and then there were problems as to how that was going to be handled, and so it went back kind of underground for a couple of years, and I just heard recently that it's just about to be published. Do you have details, Hassan?
No, I don't. It's available. Emory University. It's in the collection there. I got a copy. I think I identified myself as a scholar. I don't think they give it to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, it was the letter that what year was it? In the early 1950s, when Jack Kerouac he was writing in what a lot of people considered a much more formal style, imitating Thomas Wolfe. Doing New York literary prose, as he kind of described himself, as other people described, with The Town and the City, which is a much more conventional novel than what he's known for. In fact, many people don't know that The Town and the City was his first novel, 1950. A young man trying to establish himself as a very respectable writer, but he was looking for another way of expressing himself for all sorts of reasons. He didn't come from that milieu. He spoke New England slang. His native language was French, and it was not just Quebec French, but Massachusetts Quebec French, which was nothing like Parisian French. And he loved the idea of expressing himself in ways that were very, very, very non-standard and unconventional, and that challenged the rule of standard written English. And while he was looking for this in various ways, he got this really, really long letter, I think 20,000 words, from Neil Cassidy. So that was it. Am I saying that right? 20,000 could have been. I remember the figures. At 20,000 words. Is it? Yeah.
Maybe
So
more than that. It was
pages and pages and pages that Neil had written on and after a bus ride he'd taken across a good part of the country, where he had seduced a young elementary school teacher, and told very erotic stories about it in apparently very wild and very descriptive language. And Kerouac said, "This is what I'm looking for." And that was when he discovered his prose techniques in the early 1950s that became On the Road and all the subsequent novels. Dr. Sachs, Visions of Gerard, Desolation Angels. I'm just naming a few here and there. But yes, that was the Joan Anderson letter, and it was lost for many years. It was thought that someone had thrown it over the side of a boat. In fact, that was a certainty for a few years. And then suddenly it turned up. And yes, Robert, you know the person who found it then.
Yeah, well, her dad had it. He was friends with the publisher who had gone out of business and gave him all his stuff. So when he died, she went through his house and found this thing. But there was somebody else there who said, I think he knew what it was, and he disputed, or he wanted a piece of the proceeds. There was a big auction going on. They were expecting, hundreds or $500,000 or something. They got
it was quite an exciting find. The way Jerry Simino who runs the Beat Museum in San Francisco put it. The press talked to him running the Beat Museum, and he said it's the holy grail of Kerouac. Of Kerouac studies. It's So
could I mention one thing?
Sure.
For folks who might still be reading stuff, there's a book called Atop the Underwood by Paul Marion, who's French-Canadian from Lowell, and he collected all of Jack's writings when he was still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read those letters, you say, man, that cat was a great writer then. That's not my opinion. That's anybody's opinion who's read it. And he also had a football scholarship to Notre Dame, but he took the idea of going to Horace Mann for a year of preparatory work. So maybe he could get into Columbia, which was an hot Ivy League school. And he chose Columbia. So everybody in New York, myself included, were lucky to meet him. And he was great before he ever set foot in New York City. And Neil Cassidy was a brilliant guy, self-educated pretty much, or educated by everybody he hung out with all his life. And the myth that this dumb car thief and moronic football player came to New York City and learned how to pick up a pencil certainly has been good for merchandising sweatshirts and bongos and stuff, but that's got nothing to do, I don't believe, with the gifted, amazingly gifted guy that Jack was. And I mention that because sometimes we mythologize people and then they buy the stereotype, and then the people get stuck in their stereotype and are accused of not being authentic if they don't act like the stereotype of what they were supposed to have been. He was a natural writer. Neil was a natural writer who never got to write enough, and when all his stuff was stolen from Ken Kesey's truck, he never got over it. But he was a great influence on Jack. But Jack, and if you read that first book, The Town and the City, that's an incredible book too. Beautiful book. And you read Jack's letters, or what Brenda's, we hope, just read, that part where he's describing ambling down the street, chasing all these crazy guys at the beginning. He describes himself as the crazy guy who was a listener, a looker, and wanted to hang on and be around what he sensed was an amazing era, not a beat generation, an amazing era of artists, poets, painters, actors, filmmakers, musicians, and everyday people. And that's what is so extraordinary. And now in 2020, rather than being nostalgia, we're beginning to see, especially with the horrible conditions we're going through now, that there's something else in life besides getting ahead and dumping on people. And it doesn't have to be negative, that there's a lot of beauty out there. And that's what Jack was all about. And that's why it's so great with Pamela and Anthony and everybody to do this program, because we're not dwelling on the morbid, because that's covered already. And you leave that to the experts. You go on network TV if you want to get depressed.
David, may I ask you, is that your documentary? Is that Lawrence on Newport Classic? Lawrence, is that you? Who's Newport Classic?
That's Lawrence Kramen.
Yes. Are you still on, or did you jump off? How about we say hello to Doug Yeager? Do you know how to unmic yourself? Yeah. Hi, Doug. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you. And it was great to hear and see Brenda Vaccaro, one of my favorite actresses. And the stories that you two shared was just wonderful. And neither of you look a day over 50. So you're both doing great.
Good, great.
Oh, great. Brenda, you're back. So I'd like to open the floor for questions to Brenda. So either you could unmic yourself and we could duke it out, or raise your hand and then we could choose you. Anybody have a question? I know I sure have a couple questions. Who'd like to go first?
Oh, wow.
Sometimes people are shy and then later on they...
Oh, don't be shy.
All right. So I'll go first then. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
I'm scrolling. Hi, beautiful Brenda. Such an honor to have you with us today. And
thanks, Pam.
After all my years of research of Kerouac and his heart, and there's a line that he says about the forlorn rags, is the film particularly that you were in, Midnight Cowboy, which has influenced me so much personally. I would say, yeah, that film came out the same year, 1969. It came out in May and Jack passed away in October. And I'd say if he ever had a film made the way he would have wanted it made, it would probably be a film like Midnight Cowboy. So the question I would have for you is, when you initially began acting, if you could talk about some of your teachers and first experiences and what you've had learned, and then how you've integrated that until now, like some of your favorite teachers or favorite moments or technique, anything.
I don't have any favorite teachers. I can only tell you the best thing that ever happened to me was I used to go over to Lee Strasberg's house all the time. And Marty Fried, who drove him around all the time and who was my good friend and eventually became my husband, was very connected to the Strasberg family, to Susan when she was doing Anne Frank, and Marilyn Monroe was staying overnight there. It was that time period. And one night somebody said to Lee in the kitchen, "Does she study with you?" And he said, "She doesn't need me. She's a natural actress. She doesn't need me." And I remember going, wow, I was so happy to hear it.
That's huge.
Because, yeah, but for a lot of other reasons, I used to sit upstairs and watch Lee, and he could destroy an actor in 2 minutes. I mean, just behead him. And I was like, oh, kind of, relieved in a way as a young actress that he didn't think that there was anything I needed to learn from him, and there wasn't really. I mean, in a way, there wasn't.
Well, the incredible
even though he was a
quality.
great teacher, but I didn't want to sit there and play and look into myself and try to play cold. I just didn't need that particular exercise. Anyway, he knew that. So we got along fairly well,
I'm sorry to,
Go on.
one of your
No,
great,
please.
one of your great qualities, and it cuts in and out, so I apologize. One of your great qualities, and I would say everyone is aware, is your ability to listen. And when you're in acting schools, they always, talk about listening. How is it that you're such an amazing listener? Is that your mind, heart, soul? Like, how do you do that where we can interpret everything of the scene through your eyes?
That's two different questions.
Yes.
I don't know that I consider myself a good listener. I'm a big talker. My father used to say,
in scenes.
I know. You have no ass power, meaning I was not a good student, but you sure have the gift of gab. And that remains true. But anyway, I think that you just have to listen to the playwright. I mean, if it's Arthur Miller, you better read that goddamn script and know exactly what he's talking about. And then have your own way of interpreting that, if you can, within the will of the script. And Neil Simon, it's impossible to go outside of a Neil Simon script. You just have to do the rhythm, Otherwise, you lose the laugh. And he used to say, if you don't move fast, they ain't laughing. If you give an audience time to think, they won't laugh. And I remember saying, are you talking about pace? He said, I'm talking about everything that has to do with moving on. So I learned from the great people. Abe Burrows used to say to me, because I was just out of the neighborhood playhouse and I was doing Cactus Flower and I was improvising all over the stage. And as I left and walked up the aisle, he saw me walking and he said, "Hey, kid, you did good today." He used to blink. You said at least 2 of my lines. That meant, cut the improv. Let's get back to the script, to my script. So listening is major, and interpreting with honesty and purity and simplicity is also something else that's majorly important, so that you can listen to the playwright and you can understand what you're hearing, what you have to do, what your chore, where your action is, where you're moving, how your heart moves, so yeah, I guess I'm a good listener. Maybe not so much in life. I sort of had my own will. You know what I mean? Don't tell me what to do. Herb Gardner did a portrait of me once, but it was a cartoon. He was a great cartoonist too. And he did all these little girls in a row, all waiting online, but there's one turned away and her hands are on her hip. And she said, "Nobody tells me what to do." And that was what he said for Brenda. And he said, "Love her." So, I mean, it was clearly a lesson. So I've had my lessons from pretty great people. And the reason I listen so well is because I never forget what I heard.
That's beautiful.
Do you want me to read this poem here?
Yes.
Is it too soon? Oh, don't worry. I'm not trying to rush I don't need a new drink or anything.
We were going to do it near to the end, but you know what?
Fine.
Let's check in with Norton right now and see what Norton has to say. You there, Norton?
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm not rushing you.
Okay, I'm looking at the clock here. That's going to be in about 10 minutes or 20
Fine,
minutes.
honey. No.
All right, love.
I just
Norton,
didn't want to
are you
shirk on
there?
my duty.
Thank you, love. Oh, by the way, may I just say that your the Mad Ones, you landed a few words in a new way that after all these years of study, and I haven't heard before. It was incredible.
Oh, great. Could I see that painting again? Where's the painting? The painting's gone.
Norton.
I'm scrolling.
Norton,
We'll
that
find
is
Norton.
just great. Who is it? Who is it?
Norton Wisdom.
Oh, it's wonderful. Look at it. It's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love the butterfly in her hair. It's you. Okay. I got it.
I'm trying
This
to
is
find
great. I
Norton.
love that. Is that a black cat?
Serious.
This is a great painting. I love it. What a nice thing to see. Makes me cheery. Yeah.
Norton, it's your time to talk. I know that's your favorite thing.
Well, that's always good. We're losing our battery. Bye-bye.
Norton? What's going on?
Pamela?
You're unmiked. You could talk. We'll hear you. Huh. We actually don't hear Norton.
Could I
Is
make
Robin?
Could I
Go
say a
ahead.
brief comment, Pamela? While Norton's
Yes.
sending out his ESP brainwave, I just wanted to second the motion to what you said, because what Brenda read from memory, I did with Jack, and I heard him read that even when we weren't playing together at parties. Before his book came out, he always would read that part, and that's the first time. But I'm only going to be 90, so I've still got plenty of time. But that's the first time since the 50s I've ever heard that thing read in that way, where I really understood what it was about. You made it into a whole brand new thing that was right down on the paper, and you took it out off the paper, and with what you did, painted a whole new picture. So thank you for that. And I'm just glad everybody watching it could get a sense of what Jack Kerouac wrote, because your interpretation, that made it come to life. And you can't do any better than that, except to be lucky enough to hear someone do it more often. So thank you. It was just terrific.
Norton, are you going to come on now? And we all seconding the motion. If you hit your mic, Norton. Anthony, can you unmic everybody and see if we can get to hear Norton?
No, I don't control the unmiking, unfortunately.
Okay.
You can't hear me still?
Well, now we hear you quietly, but we hear you.
I'll preference this like I always do. I hate everything I've ever said, particularly on a mic, but I'm going to have to disagree with the Strasbergs. That you're not a natural actress, but what you are is a natural human being. And in that movie, Midnight Cowboy, the character that you portrayed, the way you acted, was pivotal from making that movie just a bunch of people that were just sad sacks living out fantasies, because you acted because you portrayed such a human being that gave it a anchor, that we understood the characters, the other characters so well, only because of the way you were so expressed what it is in both sex and in sharing and not possessing, that the movie went into what I would say into the world of a Greek classic tragedy. So you've elevated that because not of your acting, but as you as a human being. And I think that that's what was the genius of what you brought to film. So I'll wake up in the middle of the night and go, what the fuck was I talking about? Anyway,
thank you.
I had to tell my wife that I've had a crush on you for a half a century. So this I'm going to pay for this.
Thank you, Norton.
But anyway,
I love you for that, Norton. Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled with that. Thank you.
Anyway, enough.
What about the sex, though, Norton? I mean, it was a sex scene. Let's face it.
What can I say?
I was so nervous. I said to John Schlesinger, I can't believe my mother's going to see my tits before my face in my first movie. I mean, I was so scared my mother was going to be so upset. But anyway, I appreciate everything you said. That's really lovely. Thank you.
Well, it wasn't sex. It wasn't sex. It was.
No, I know. I was making a joke, honey.
No, I know, but I mean, it was two human beings actually communicating. One person being elevated, right, into realizing he was portraying a fantasy, and you brought him into the real world for a second, and with, you know, are you gay or are you this, right? It was a transformative experience for the character that he was playing, and you would so gently took his hand and brought him back into the, you know what I mean, into the world that we inhabit and inhabit.
Can I tell you a funny story, honey? John Schlesinger used to have us in to watch all the rushes because there were so many feet of film. I think he shot 400,000 feet, and in each film, a film is 100,000 feet. So you can imagine how much film he had. But the day we shot, and I was in that white outfit, and it's the day afterwards where he comes over and he wants the money. And so I wanted to say, how much was it? And he goes, 20, ma'am, or whatever he does. You know, I wanted to do that. And Schlesinger was very cranky and very kind of nasty. We haven't got time for that, darling. I mean, the scene is done. Just give him the money. I said, well, I was hoping we could shoot it both ways. And I mean, I don't know where this came out of me. I had some nerve trying to get Schlesinger to do it two ways. And he looked at me and said, what did you say? I said, I thought might be worthy to shoot it both ways. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, because I mean, I really want to ask him how much was it? And I tried to do it in a compelling way. And he said, all right, let's do it. So we shot it both ways. And the day that it was in rushes, he used to invite us to come to rushes all the time because he had so much film. And I guess he didn't give a shit. So anyway, we'd all go in there and eat candy and eat popcorn, whatever we did. And it was there. The two ways were there. And I didn't say anything. I didn't want to rile him up. I just got up and left. And as I was leaving, he said, Brenda. I said, yes. He said, actually, darling, your way is better. We shall use it. And that's how it got in the movie. So I loved him for that. I loved him for his honesty, for his willingness, and for making me feel like $1 million at the moment. Sometimes a director can just lift you up and let you fly. You know, that was John. He was great. But I wanted you to know that because, I mean, he was very much a part of all of that, to make all of that free enough to happen. Yeah, that's true.
Very sneaky and divisive the way you snuck that in.
Say it again.
Listen,
I didn't hear. What did he say, Pam?
That you were sneaky and divisive to sneak that in.
Oh, yeah. But
Well
I was
done.
right. I was right.
It really lands. The moment really lands.
It sure was better than just, you know, no line, no business, nothing. And I think it would have been true because I think she, you know, back to business.
She was
How much was
in
it?
that way, yeah. What do you think,
Anyway.
David?
I remember.
There's a story, David.
No, I remember that, believe it or not. And I remember that moment. That was terrific.
Wasn't it? I thought it was a good
It
addition.
never occurred to me, but I can remember that line. I remember, wham! You got the whole picture.
What was it? Wasn't it just, how much was it?
Yeah.
I think I just,
No, there was about $20.
I mean, let's get back to business here.
Yeah. It was just an example of what life goes on in some poor hick, which I was too when I came to New York, trying to figure out what end of the mop to pick up. And what you did, that particular moment showed the whole thing of what happened to Adam and Eve after they left the Garden of Eden.
I'm not so sure he really got it up. I don't think they really did have sex. Well, maybe they did, yeah.
But it was just the idea.
Yeah, no, he did because Schlesinger had, Adam Hollander was the cinematographer and he had the camera and he was over us and we were on the floor. The fur coat went open. I got so many stories about this movie. It's not to be believed. But anyway, the camera's over here and John is here moving back and forth and back and forth. I won't say it as it was. And all of a sudden I heard John Schlesinger say, Come now, darling. I mentioned that story to John Boyd. I saw him, I don't know, 2 years ago. He was in a deli. I walked in, we got to talking about things, and I told that to him. And he said, he remembered, he laughed. We had such a laugh. I mean, it was insane to hear somebody, come now, darling. So anyway, yeah, we did have sex in that scene. That's correct. We did.
And they told me at the Art Foods Delicatessen.
They told you what?
They told me at the Art Foods Delicatessen when they were making that movie, they said there's this terrific actress. They mentioned your name. That's the first time I had heard of your name. So when I met you, Jerry, years later, I already knew about you from those scenes in that movie from those two guys. And it's just amazing serendipity. So that makes it worthwhile to not be.
That's nice. Yeah.
And to see you right
Roy
now.
Scheider. Remember that wonderful actor?
Yes.
Sure.
Michael Douglas, that wonderful actor.
Oh, boy.
All these men were just falling in love with me all over the place from that scene. I was quite happy with that scene. I couldn't have done it better.
David,
I had a very good time with that scene.
Anthony, are you going to say something?
Yeah, Brenda, we actually, I saw Susan raising her hand, and she also had posted something in the chat a little bit ago, and we bring Susan to the spotlight and see what she had to say for the world. Hello, Susan.
Hello, welcome to everybody, and I would like to say hello from Minnesota. I'm calling from Minnesota, and David is a former neighbor of mine in Putnam Valley, and my kids used to play with his kids and so forth, and I've written about him as well. I wanted to ask both you and Dave how you're handling these very strange times that we have right now, where we have to do things via Zoom and so on. I just had my daughter getting married in San Francisco via Zoom, my first time to be on Zoom, and this is about my second or third time on Zoom. And so I'm just curious, as humans, how you are handling this strange situation that we have and how it's affecting your life.
Well, I'll start off to introduce as a prelude to Brenda. Because first of all, thank you for sending me the picture of your daughter in her wedding veil, which I wouldn't have seen because I couldn't come out there. Secondly, life has been such an insane series of nightmares and heavenly experiences that this is just another bump in the road. And third of all, I think this has made a lot of us think about what's important in life. And I got a phone call, staggering serendipity, from Brenda, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. She went to a cheese shop and saw cheese named after me, called me up, and we started talking. And I said, man, I'm doing this program about Jack Kerouac and blah, blah, blah. And here we are. Incredible. Now, if that hadn't happened, I still would have had the cheese, I guess. But I'm not sure if we ever could have found the time to get together or do anything, much less honor Jack Kerouac and the theater and films and all of you and other people and our whole culture and the beauty side of life. I'm not sure there would be time for that the way stuff is programmed. So sometimes you just take a catastrophe and turn it into something beautiful. And I think that's what this is all about. And Brenda, that was my introduction to Zoomology 101.
Oh, jeez.
That's great, Suma. I don't know. I just think you have to go with the flow. You know, if this is the way we have to do it, this is the way we have to do it. It's just this extraordinary thing that's happened with COVID, with Trump, with the age of vulgarity, with lack of conscience. And I mean, all these things, I don't know how we can fight them all, honey. You know, we just have to live with it and sort of be who we are and stay who you are and have confidence in who you are and hope things will pass like a bad cold, you know, and a runny nose and a cough. And you go, this too will pass. And I think it's going to pass, all of it. I do. I just think it's an extraordinary thing to have gotten this far in our life. And you're a mother, you know, and I'm my age. And David said, I mean, did we expect this? Holy Moses. I mean, I'm still in shock when I go, who's lying now? you know, and it could be a husband. It could be a producer. It could be, it's an enormous way that the world has changed, and the world has changed. There's no two ways about it. What are we going to do? How do you change it? How do you just got to go with it in a peaceful way and not get too excited, you know, like Jane Fonda, calm down. You know, the activism is important, but you know, sometimes I don't know that it changes anything. I don't know. I'm just not an activist, you know. I did this thing on voting. Please vote. It's a privilege. Know that if you're an American, they want your opinion. Your opinion means a lot. It's true. It's yours. It's private. Do it. Vote. It's one thing America offers you. You're an American. But I'm not going to say, don't vote for this, vote for that. I mean, I'm not an activist, but yet I care actively about that, you know, but I can't get crazy. I won't. So I think we just sort of adjust as best as we can. And I don't know, this little black musician once told me, "You're too nervous." He said, "You're like a fart in a fry pan." He said, "You got to learn, honey, life is flowing and glowing." So every time I opened a Broadway show, Susan, I'd write on my mirror, "Flow and glow." It's become my if I write a book, which I probably won't, I'll talk my way through life. But I thought I'd just write it, "Flow and glow." It was the best advice I ever got in my, "You're too nervous. You're like a fart in a fry pan." He said, you got to calm down. And I'm not even going to tell you what it was all about. But anyway, he was backstage and there he was, and he was just a magical character. And I think that's the way we have to do it. Don't you? I mean, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah, I mean, how are you handling it? Same way I'm talking, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a writer, and I just finished a 600-page book about the St. Olaf Band, which I've sent out to David, and he.
Well, then I don't need to say anything more. 600 pages. What am I talking for?
He has accepted it. You know, he's given me some very nice comments about it and so forth. But this is a time when it's hard for promotions, you know, and stuff, and so that has been a bit of a problem. It came out last December. So I've just had a few comment. The Minnesota Public Radio just did a feature on it and so on. So
how long does it take you to write 600 pages, Toots?
Oh, well, I had a co-author and we wrote the history of the St. Olaf Band, and it took us 3 years.
3 years.
Yes, interviewing a lot of the people who were musicians, and fortunately, I had the current band conductor to talk.
Well, come on, then the secret is write a book with 600 pages. That's how you get through it.
The secret is, yeah, you do what you do, and you know, David is still composing, and it has changed what you had planned, David, for this 90th year of yours, of course. But now you're doing something very interesting here with the Zoom, you know, and as you said, you've been able to reconnect with Brenda in this way and so forth. So that's that. Well, thank you for asking anyway, Brenda. I get to mention my book.
Oh, no, I'm so glad, honey. No, that's good. You know, don't waste your time. Someone who wrote 600 pages deserves to talk.
Absolutely. We have another question. Thank you. That was so beautiful, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then it pops up really quickly on the screen. So please unmic yourself and ask your question. I'm not sure whose question it is.
I believe we had a hand up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can't see me. This is Nelson Harrison. Hi.
Hi.
I've really been enjoying all of this. I had just a quick message. I heard you talking about Richie Cole. And it just thrilled me because Richie moved. I'm in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And Richie moved to Pittsburgh.
I know.
To be with his granddaughter, and we were great friends. We played together a lot, and so I operate the Pittsburgh Jazz Network, and I just sent David on email Richie's obit and lyrics to a song of his that I wrote, and a picture of the two of us together. I just sent it to David. Maybe you can share it with Brenda.
Yeah.
And I wish he would know how well you thought of him, and because he just left us a few months ago.
I know. David thinks was it May? Because I didn't
2nd.
hear about it.
Yeah.
Was it May?
I heard about it from Brenda.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But I think someone called me late.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, I was horrified to hear he passed. And because I just talked to him not long ago. And he was just brilliant. He was brilliant. He was an innovator.
And
Wasn't he, David? He was an
he did
innovator.
a lot of recording. In his last couple of years, he was coming up with a new CD every time he turned around. So he must have known he was ill, and he got as much recorded as he could. But he was
really?
he was such a great guy, and all the musicians here loved him. So
I loved him.
yeah, and it's nice to hear you talk about him.
Thank you. That was so beautiful that you could connect together on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it.
We are actually honoring the passing into the light of Jack Kerouac, which was on the 21st of October in 1969. And I have my Van Halen shirt on for Eddie Van Halen. And to hear you both mutually speak about your friend is so beautiful. And now we're going to have Jim Canary do a stanza of a poem. And then beautiful Brenda is going to read some Kerouac while Norton paints. And the beautiful David is going to play. And then we'll come back and say, see you next week after that.
If I can make one request to Anthony. Anthony, this will be the first time in your career you've heard someone say, please turn my volume down, so that nothing that I do steps on the words of Jack Kerouac as read by Jim and by Brenda, because they're precious without the music. And when I played with Jack, I tried to accompany the music that was already in the words and not wreck it. Thank you.
Action, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read an excerpt from an interview with Jack that was done by Ben Hecht. I want to speak for things. For the crucifix, I speak out. For the Star of Israel, I speak out. For the divinest man who ever lived and who was a German, Bach, I speak out. For sweet Mohammed, I speak out. For Buddha, I speak out. For Lao Tzu and Chuang-Tzu, I speak out. For D.T. Suzuki, I speak out. Why should I attack what I love out of life? This is beat. Live your lives out. No, love your lives out.
Thank you. Brenda, it's you. Action girl.
David, this is for you. How do I do it? I don't see anything.
Oh, well,
on the roof of America. Okay. At night, in this part of the West, the stars, as I had seen them in Wyoming, are big as Roman candles and as lonely as the prince who's lost his ancestral home and journeys across the spaces, trying to find it again. So they slowly wheeled to the night. And then long before actual sunrise, the great red light appeared far over the dark, bleak land toward West Kansas. And the birds took up their trill above Denver. I wondered what the spirit of the mountain was thinking, and looked up and saw jack pines in the moon, and saw ghosts of old miners, and wondered about it. In the whole eastern dark wall of the divide this night there was silence and the whisper of the wind, except in the ravine where we roared. And on the other side of the divide was the great western slope and the big plateau that went to Steamboat Springs and dropped and led you to the eastern Colorado desert and the Utah desert, all in darkness now, as we fumed and screamed in our mountain nook. We were on the roof of America, and all we could do was yell, I guess. across the night, eastward over the plains where somewhere an old man with white hair was probably walking toward us with the word and would arrive any minute and make us silent. There you go. I like that poem.
It's beautiful.
I thought at first it was too masculine for me, but now I don't think so. I feel like I can read it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful mood you create. And anything you do, it's a beautiful mood. So much heart.
Anyway, I love it.
Thank you, Brenda.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Norton. Thank you, James, Doug, everyone that came on our show.
Sweet.
David. Bye, darling.
I think David's
Thank
going to
you for
play us
having
out
me,
and
sweet
have a few
David.
words.
He's playing. He's playing. Okay. Bye, Pam. Thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely.
And bye,
Anyone's
Norton.
going to fall in love with you that gets to know you. First from your work
Keep
and then from who
keep
you are.
painting,
Thank
doll. Keep playing. Keep painting. Keep loving.
Good night.
Keep glowing, Brenda.
Glowing and flowing, baby.
Glowing and flowing.
You like a
Thank
fart
you.
in a fry pan. I'll never forget it. I love that guy. Big lesson. That was a
Thank you
big
so much,
lesson.
Brenda, for being
Bye,
with
Susan.
us
Oh,
tonight.
Davey's singing to you.
Good luck with your book. Yeah.
Your readings and your commentary was out of sight. And we must have practiced it up subconsciously because we knew that we would get it right.
Go for it, baby. Them hands have magic, Miles. Mr. Miles.
Oh. Are we done yet?
Good night, David. We love you.
Good night,
Brenda,
David.
God
Thank
bless
you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much for coming.
You.
Thank you.
Just
You
terrific
guys-
as always, and always will be. For all the people who are listening, Jim Canary and Pamela and the great Anthony Demarbier, and all of course making those gorgeous paintings. What a joy, spontaneity here, and creativity is here. We're here, and we ain't gonna go away.